Fidelity High, the people you dig, the records they love.
Benjamin Booker is a critically acclaimed singer-songwriter and musician. His 2013 eponymous debut was released by ATO Records and entered the top 10 of the Billboard Alternative and Independent Albums charts. A must-see live act, Booker also released a live album via Jack White's Third Man Records in 2014. Magnet magazine stated, "Booker takes inspiration from the past to make huge artistic leaps forward," while Paste said, "Booker's music emerges as defiant, insightful, and both intimately and communally self-actualizing." His sophomore studio effort, Witness, was released in 2017 to critical acclaim and features a guest appearance by the legendary Mavis Staples.
This is Benjamin Booker, and my Fidelity High is Return to Cookie Mountain by TV on the Radio. I honestly can't remember how I came across this record or discovered it. I think that what happened is I was watching Letterman, and they had just performed on Letterman Wolf Like Me, one of the big singles from this record. And I think that performance was really the thing that got me into the band. It's still probably the greatest live performance I've ever seen. I don't know, it's just one of those eye-opening moments where it's just like, wow, I didn't know that you could do that. You know what I mean? It's just like, who are these guys? So I think that after that, I was pretty deep into it. And luckily, I got a chance to catch them not long after that in New York. I was working as a nanny. And I used to go to this bar called Zebulon because the guy that I was living with worked there. And TV on the Radio had a studio about a block away. And that was like one of their haunts. And so Kip came in, and I got to meet him when I was 18 and freaked out. And then he invited me to see them at McCarran Park Pool. So I got to catch him that summer. And I've just been the biggest fan since then. This is not only one of my favorite bands, but it's probably my favorite record ever. So I love it.
Formed in a post-9/11 New York City, TV on the Radio were part of a scene that included The Strokes, Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Interpol, The Walkmen, Liars, and more. After circulating their OK Calculator home demo, the band were signed to the legendary Chicago-based indie label Touch and Go Records. The label issued their Young Liars EP in 2003 and their debut LP Desperate Youth, Bloodthirsty Babes the following year. Based on the success of their debut, the band were signed to the major label Interscope in the US and the influential 4AD for the rest of the world, issuing the highly anticipated Return to Cookie Mountain in 2006.
Before I think I saw the band, I'd seen Kip Malone in Afropunk, the documentary. So I think just like being a black kid growing up listening to punk and stuff, it was just like, oh man, here's a band of black kids. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there's a good chance that I probably wouldn't be playing music at all if it wasn't for them, because I just felt like there was a space for me all of a sudden, you know? But I think that it was also just like the other worldly element to the music that really drew me in. I think I was in high school at the time when this album came out. And I don't know, I think that the music that I was drawn to was the kind of escapist kind of music. And I think that when you start this album from the beginning to the end, it's just another place that's very unfamiliar. And it was just something that I could listen to over and over again and just like take myself out of whatever high school drama was going on at the time. Plus, it didn't sound like there's not many bands I feel like that you hear that seem like unprecedented to you, or where you just like can't place it. And I think that this album, you can hear influences, but I don't think that there was anything like this album before it came out, you know? And I just was drawn to it immediately.
Return to Cookie Mountain was a sonic achievement. It was textured and meticulous, dense and claustrophobic, melodic and soulful. The album was produced by TV on the Radio founding member and multi-instrumentalist Dave Sitek at his now defunct Stay Gold studio in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. In 2008, the NME named him number 1 on their Future 50 list of the most forward-thinking people in music today. In addition to TV on the Radio, he has produced the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Run the Jewels, Liam Gallagher's Beady Eye, and co-produced and co-wrote Love Happy, the closing track from Jay-Z and Beyoncé's album as The Carters, Everything Is Love.
I mean, it is a studio band, but I think that the punk influences in the rock side really comes out during the shows. The shows are way more intense than the record, and way more aggressive and just like alive than the studio stuff. So it's just a completely different experience, which I mean has also had a big impact on me also, because it's just like the studio is one thing and the live show is another thing, and you can do two different things. Off the new record, there's like 10 songs on the record, and 4 or 5 of them will be played completely different than the record tonight. So I think that was something that I took away from this band also, you know.
TV on the Radio was successful at blending their various influences and creating a sound all their own. Within their songs, one could hear elements of 60s soul, 70s prog, funk, rock and roll and post-punk, avant-garde noise, hip-hop production, 80s college rock, as well as the indie rock of the 1990s.
You have everything from like hip-hop influences to shoegaze to, I mean, it's just really all over the place. I remember hearing that they do the songs in all different kinds of ways. Like they didn't really have a way to write a song like one way. They would just start different kinds of ways. And Dave Siddick apparently was like famous at the time for smoking like a pound of weed a month or something like that, is what I read. And like just sitting in the studio making those bong hits and just knocking it out. I mean, it sounds like that. It's just like, I don't know how you could write a record like this. I still don't understand how they made this, you know? But the production side, I didn't know anything about that. I mean, Dave Siddick is like a whiz kid, and even if you try to explain it to me now, I don't know if I would be able to understand any of it. I know that there's a bunch of like old analog synths, and when I was in high school when this came out, I sent Kip a message on MySpace, and he responded to me about Wash the Day Away, which is one of the songs on the album, and it has this incredible just like white noise, like fuzz kind of thing happening, and I was just like obsessed with how he got that. And I did ask him about that on MySpace, and he responded, and I think he just said that, hey, we just put together a bunch of fuzz guitars. So that's what it is. It's crazy because the album is so complicated and so detailed, but I don't it also, from that response and just like the guys, it doesn't seem very pretentious, you know what I mean? It seems like they were really just playing around and seeing what came out, you know? And I don't know, I like that about the record, because there's a lot of bands at that time. I mean, this could arguably be the most pretentious time in music, 2006. So, but I mean, like, this record never felt like that to me. It never did. Because, I mean, it was a big deal to me, I think, this record. The biggest thing was just, like, the idea that genres, like, don't have to exist at all when you're making songs, you know. It's possible to put a bunch of things together and have it make sense. It's just, like, looking for the right things that fit, you know. The first song on the album is called I Was a Lover, and that's got kind of like a hip-hop drum machine kind of like beat, but also just like shoegazy kind of My Bloody Valentine like guitar kind of stuff in the background, and you're just like, I mean, it works. So that's something that I think I took when I started making music, just like a song on my new album, Witness, where it's just like I have like a hip-hop kind of like early 90s boom bap drum beat on that song, but also just like gospel melodies and just like funk influences on the guitar and things like that mixed into the song too. It's just I stopped thinking about okay, this has to be one thing. It can be anything that I want it to be, you know.
Return to Cookie Mountain features guest appearances by David Bowie, Katrina Ford of Celebration, and Kazuo Makino of Blonde Redhead. Months before it was due in stores, the album was leaked online with a track listing placing the single Wolf Like Me as its lead-off song. The officially released album had the song, which was easily the most accessible track on the record, placed more in the middle of the sequence. The album was met with overwhelming critical acclaim. The NME called it odd, addictive, unsettling, and beautiful. Rolling Stone said it might be the most oddly beautiful, psychedelic, and ambitious album of the year. And the New York Times said Return to Cookie Mountain is simply one of the year's best albums. The record received the coveted Best New Music rating from Pitchfork and landed at number 1 on Spin Magazine's Best Albums of 2006.
This is a difficult record to turn people on to. I find that it's pretty polarizing, this band. I usually would tell, I mean, apparently there was a release of this album that came out where they started with Wolf Like Me, which is like the big hit on that. That's pretty universally liked. But they put it in the middle of the album. I think probably because it would have been too much of a drop in the track listing. But I mean, that song I think is what I would start people off with, and then kind of I think this is a band where you probably hit people with the singles and then work into the album. I don't know. It depends on the person that you're talking to. I don't know. It's weird to look back on this now because Tunde, the singer, is about the same age that I am now when he made this album, and it's just like that typical late 20s, I think, kind of thing where it is, I think, a love album. An album about love and trying to find your place and navigate through relationships and those kinds of things. And it's something that I think when I was a teenager, I had no idea what he was talking about. This was 10 years down the line from where I was. But I don't know. It's like the thing where people read books later and you realize that, like, oh, this has a completely different meaning now. And I think that, I don't know, this is definitely one of those records that you can go back to and I know the meaning is going to change for you, so I appreciate that a lot.
Great. Perfect.
Awesome,
man. Yeah, no, awesome.
Awesome. I'm glad that was.
Thank you to Benjamin Booker, and thanks for listening to this episode of Fidelity High. All episodes of Fidelity High can be found for download on iTunes and fidelityhigh.com.